Cut off my sister after she slept with my husband and told me to stay out of their business. Years later they begged me to care for their son while she recovered from a car crash. I, 36F, have been divorced for 3 years. My ex-husband, Caleb, 36M, had an affair with my sister, Alyssa, 32F, while we were married, and that ended our relationship. Caleb and I met through friends when we were 25 at a party, and that's when we started dating. We were in a relationship for 3 years, after which he proposed, and then we got married. We had been married for about 5 years, after which I finally found out that he had been cheating on me with my sister. Caleb and Alyssa met for the first time when I brought him home for dinner, 6 or maybe 7 months into our relationship. By then, we knew that we were serious about each other and decided to introduce each other to our families. I had already met his family, it was just his parents since he had no siblings. I, however, had a pretty big family. I am the middle child, our oldest sibling is Chris, 40M, and he's pretty much the only person I'm speaking to from my family now. The first time that I brought Caleb home for dinner, he got along well with everybody, but most of all with Alyssa. They realized that they had a lot of things in common, like their favorite TV shows, books, and even the kind of cuisine that they enjoyed, and they really bonded over that. I thought it was cute, I had no idea what it would turn out to be in the future. They became really good friends and I was happy that Caleb was getting along so well with my family. I also had a good relationship with Alyssa at that point in time, since we were closer in age, compared to Chris. Alyssa and I would sometimes even go out on double dates with our respective partners and we had a lot of fun times together. She had a couple of short-lived relationships while Caleb and I were together, so she would bring a different guy on every date and she would even joke about how she wished Caleb had a sibling so she could just date him instead. She would occasionally make comments about how Caleb was the perfect guy and how lucky I was, but I always took them as compliments, never reading too much into it because I genuinely thought that she was just praising Caleb and I did not say anything wrong with it. I never thought that maybe she was hinting at something because that's how much I trusted and loved her, that it didn't even occur to me that maybe she had a thing for him. When Caleb proposed to me, and then we got married, there was nobody happier than Alyssa. As a matter of fact, she was even the maid of honor at my wedding. So you can imagine how hurt I was. After 5 years of being together, I discovered that the two of them had been sleeping together behind my back. Before you guys ask, there was nothing going on that could have made me suspicious about the two of them. I trusted Alyssa more than anything in the world and I also trusted Caleb in my head. They would never do anything to hurt me and I was sure of it. So, for 5 years, Caleb and I had a really smooth sailing relationship. There were a couple of minor hiccups here and there, like he wanted kids and I was not ready for it. He wanted me to spend less time at work, but that was not an option for me because I earned more than him, and the kind of lifestyle that we had, we needed my income to support ourselves financially. He thought I was too career-oriented and wanted me to be a little more laid back, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not explain it to him that we absolutely needed the money both of us were earning to have a stable lifestyle. For context, I am an investment banker and it's a really demanding job. He works in marketing, and he's good at his job, but he's not very dedicated to it, the way that I am. And I'm not complaining about it, I really love my job and it helps me fulfill my dreams, so why should I not work hard for it? And as for why I did not want kids, well, that's an easy answer. I was not mentally or emotionally ready to be a mother, and I would rather not do something at all than do a bad job of it. Especially when it comes to being a parent, I think if somebody is not ready to be a parent, there is no way that they should be pressured into or coerced into becoming one. I do not want to have kids and then regret my decision, and I had been very clear about it, right from the beginning of our relationship. But he had assumed that I would change my mind as we got married and time went on. I don't know why he thought that I would change my mind, since I had always said that I did not want kids. Anyway, these were the major bones of contention between the two of us, and most of our fights, the big ones, would usually be about either of these two things. Like every other couple, we would also have petrified and disagreements, but we were always able to work through these things. Even when we both had big fights, we would make up in the end and we knew that we were in it for the long run. Or at least I knew that. I don't think that he and I were on the same page about it. My point is that we would fight, but we would always make up. He always expressed his love for me, even up until a week before I discovered that he had been cheating on me, and I never had any reason to doubt his loyalty towards me since he never gave me any. However, a week after we celebrated our 5-year wedding anniversary, I found out that he had been having an affair with Alyssa. Even on the day of our anniversary, he was being all cute with me at the party, while we were guests, and acting like I was the only person he cared about. But that changed significantly after I found out that he had been cheating on me. A couple of days after we celebrated our anniversary, I was going through my wardrobe, looking for something, but I couldn't find it so I decided to look in Caleb's wardrobe. I don't remember what exactly it is that I was looking for, but I remember that I had a work event a few days after that and there was a very specific blazer that I was searching for. I thought that maybe I must have put it with his clothes by mistake, so I decided to look in his wardrobe, and while looking, I accidentally grabbed a bag that he had shoved right to the back of his wardrobe. Out of curiosity, I took it out and started going through it. To my shock, I realized that women's clothes were stuffed into it. After looking through a couple of items, it dawned on me that I had seen these clothes before, and I realized that these were all Alyssa's clothes. I could not make sense of what was going on, and I was in a total state of confusion. I was absolutely lost because I couldn't come up with one single reasonable explanation for this. So I decided to look through his phone, something that I had never done before, because I trusted him, and he had never done it to me either. We had never given each other any reason to do so, but at that moment, I felt like I had to do it because even if I did ask him about those clothes, he would have time to come up with an excuse and hide evidence and stuff like that. So I decided to just go for it. I knew the password to his phone and I decided to check his DMs, and sure enough, when I opened his chat with Alyssa, it was innocent initially, but when I scrolled up, I noticed that the way that they were speaking to each other, friends don't speak to each other that way. They were flirting with each other, getting intimate by text, and making plans to hook up, which explained all the late nights he was working. I gathered that this affair had probably been going on for a couple of months. And coincidentally, Alyssa had come over for lunch that day. So the two of them were so lucky that I had them in the house at the same time, so I confronted them together. I showed them the text and the bag of clothes that I had found in his wardrobe and demanded an explanation. But instead of apologizing to me or even bothering to deny it, the two of them just said that this was none of my concern and that I had to stay out of their business. I was really taking a bath by that response because obviously, this was my business. If my husband was cheating on me with my sister, I think it qualifies as my business. I did not hold back and I started screaming at both of them that day, but instead of reacting to any of it, they just continued to pretend this was no big deal. Caleb even had the gall to tell me that since I was not giving him a child and neither did I bother to spend enough time with him, which was really hypocritical because neither was he willing to compromise on his lavish lifestyle, and I was the one who was supporting it. But anyway, that's the reason he told me that he had to look for other options and he had Alyssa get along really well. Alyssa said that I should actually be glad that he chose to keep it in the family instead of going elsewhere, since that would have been even more embarrassing for me. They told me that they were not going to stop, and as a matter of fact, now that I found out, they did not see any reason to hide it from me any longer. They had only been keeping this under wraps because they wanted to avoid the drama and they were just waiting for her promotion, so she could move away from here, and Caleb would then follow. But she was not against the idea of revealing everything now and then getting this over with. It was really nasty and I don't even know how I got through all of it. There was not much to say after I found out the truth, since they did not seem guilty about it, and I was not going to forgive him for it, that was for. So I decided to file for a divorce, and after I told my parents, they cut Alyssa off, and Eric also stopped speaking to her. Literally, nobody from our family had any ties with her after that, and they did not seem any worse off for it either. A couple of weeks after that, Alyssa moved away to Pennsylvania, which is a 9-hour drive away from here, and once our divorce came through, 3 months later, he also followed suit. He did not contest the divorce or my petition and left everything to me. I guess he must have surmised that now that he was with Alyssa, he would not have to worry about money. She had been promoted to a better position and that meant better pay, so he did not have to worry about losing out on my wealth and the settlement that he would get from the divorce. I guess he was just in a hurry to get it over with, so he did not put up much of a fight. And I'm glad about it because that allowed me to get it over with quickly. Since then, neither I nor anybody else from our family has had any contact with her. We don't know where she is, we don't know what she has been up to. We never bothered to find out. My friends who still follow her and are in touch with her, know better than to talk to me about it. So to sum it up, I have no idea what's going on in her life. It's been 3 years, but I'm still trying to recover from everything and they really messed me up for good. However, I was reminded of everything a couple of days ago, because Caleb got back in touch with me. He called me up from a number that I did not recognize, and unfortunately, I have had the same phone number for the past couple of years, and I didn't think much before answering that phone call. As soon as I picked up, I should have hung up, but curiosity got the better of me, and when I heard him speaking on the other end, I decided to hear him out at least. He sounded pretty desperate and upset and quickly explained to me that he was calling to ask for my help, which was really bold because for 3 years, we had not been in touch and we didn't exactly end on good terms. So the least he could have done was at least apologize to me, but he didn't do any of that and came straight to the point. He told me that Alyssa had been in a car accident a few weeks and couldn't move since she had fractured both her legs and her arms were all bruised up, a couple of months ago, and they had a 2-year-old son that needed to be taken care of. He told me that he had already tried to get his friends there to take over, but all of them were busy, and none of them were willing to take on such a huge responsibility. And he couldn't handle everything on his own, since he also had to go to work and try to earn more, now that Alyssa was going to be on bed rest for quite some time and couldn't go to work. They had to make sure that Alyssa was taken care of, and handling both a 2-year-old child and Alyssa, who was so severely injured, was not his cup of tea. They had thought about hiring a full-time nurse, but even that was out of their budget since the area that they lived in was quite expensive, so now they were relying on their family to help them out. They had already called my parents, but they said that they were too old now, or they would definitely have agreed to it. My in-laws were not an option anymore since my father-in-law had passed away just a year ago and my mother-in-law lives in Canada with her sister, so she won't be able to help even if she wants to. And they had also called Eric, but he had said that he wanted nothing to do with him anymore. And they did not trust anybody else enough to let them take over the duties of taking care of their son while they were indisposed, apart from me, since neither of them was particularly close with their extended family. So as a last resort, they were literally begging me to help them out. And after years of holding it in, I finally had my moment. After he was done telling me about all of this, I just told him that I couldn't help him because it was not my business, and then I hung up and blocked his number. I didn't even bother to get into the details of it and just left it at that. Eric thinks that I did the right thing, but unfortunately, my parents don't quite agree with it. They think that 3 years have passed and now, I should be over it. Especially since Alyssa is going through something so horrible, and I should be there for her. I don't even understand what they are going on about because they think that I am being stubborn by refusing to help them, and I think that they are being ridiculous by even expecting me to help them after what they did to me. I feel bad for the kid, I really do, but again, that's not my problem. They insist that I am being selfish and stubborn, and I should at least consider it before saying no. It has been a couple of days and my parents are really getting to me because now, I'm not sure if I did the right thing or not. I wouldn't have felt bad for them, but there is a child involved and that's why I'm rethinking my decision. Ida for refusing to help my sister and my ex-husband out with taking care of their son since he had cheated on me with her. Update 1. Hi, first off, thank you so much for all the comments on my post. Thank you for taking the time to say something, that was really nice of you guys. And now, coming to my decision. I'm not changing my mind, I'm still staying out of their business, as they had put it themselves. My parents can think whatever they want to about me, I really don't care. They don't have the right to decide if I should move on or not. I was the one who got hurt and so, I'm the only person who gets to decide how I feel about this. They don't get to dictate my feelings. I do, and I always will, feel bad about their son, but again, that's not my child, and not my problem. If they feel so sorry about this situation, they can take on the responsibility of taking care of their child themselves, instead of making up excuses about how old they are. They are just in their early 60s, they do everything that normal people do and it's not like it's that big of a deal for them. If it's just a matter of a couple of months, I'm sure they can help out. But they don't want to do that, they just want to put it on me. When I communicated my decision to my parents and told them that I was not going to change my mind, they told me that they were cutting ties with me as well since I was really selfish and stubborn and they couldn't believe that I was going to act this way, even though Alyssa was so severely injured. I don't know what's so hard to believe, they screwed me over once, and I'm not about to let them walk all over me a second time. It's as simple as that, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I haven't talked to Eric about it yet, but I know that he will be on my side, as he has been so far. He is a little busy with work right now since he has just signed a new project and it's going to be a couple of days before I can find enough time to discuss this with him. But until then, I am quite comfortable with my decision. I don't know what's going to happen to Alyssa, Caleb, and their son, and I really hope that they do find a solution, for the sake of their child, but it's not my problem to worry about. Update 2. Hey, it has now been 1.5 weeks since Caleb tried to get back in touch with me. I blocked him back then and so far, he has not been able to reach out to me again. But I have heard from Eric that they have been trying to get in touch with him relentlessly and even Alyssa has been messaging him. But he has been ignoring all their messages and just leaves them to read. I spoke to Eric a couple of days ago and he told me that even he had decided that he was not going to keep in touch with our parents anymore since they were being really unreasonable and selfish. It's ironic since that's exactly what they had been accusing me of being. It serves them right honestly, since now they are on their own and they don't even have Eric to call family. They still have a chance to make things right with their other daughter, Alyssa, but I don't think they are going to take up the responsibility of taking care of their son. It seems unlikely because my parents are the kind of people who say that they love their close ones, but won't go out of their way for anyone. I've seen that in them, with Eric's kids. I won't get into it much, but there was an incident a couple of years ago when Eric's elder son had fractured his wrist after a bad fall at the playground and he must have been around 4 years old at the time. Eric's business was going through a slump back then and he had requested our parents to lend him some money so he could get a physiotherapist to improve his son's movement in the wrist after the cast came off, but they flat out refused. Apparently, they had told him that they were getting old and they had to save for their retirement as well, so they couldn't just give out money like charity. Eric had been respectful of it and hadn't brought it up again because he did not want to come off as entitled, but I thought that it was kind of selfish of them. So it's not very surprising to me that they are still not helping out with their grandkids, it's just what I had expected. I just hope that they understand when Eric and Alyssa refuse to let them interact with their grandkids in the future since they have never shown any interest in being helpful. If their kids are not entitled to any help from them, they should also extend the same quote to their kids, and not feel entitled to spend any time with their grandkids when they want to. But that's just my opinion. As much as I dislike Alyssa, I hope that things work out for all of them eventually. Update 3. So, this is going to be a pretty long update. Almost 2 months have passed since I received news of the accident that had taken place with Alyssa. I haven't heard from them directly, but I have kept in touch with Eric and he is the one who is giving me all of this information. I told him that I would be fine with that if he kept in touch with Alyssa and responded to her messages because honestly, I was not feeling too good about the situation. I don't like Alyssa, that's true. And I absolutely loathe Caleb, but at the same time, I am not heartless enough to wish anything bad to happen to them. I know that their 2-year-old son has had no part to play in all of the evil things that they have done in the past, and so, I told Eric to keep in touch with Alyssa and help her out if she needed it. They were bad people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to stoop down to their level. I already got my revenge, I refused to help them, and that was it. But, families are complicated and I can't bring myself to wish bad things on anybody, no matter what they have done to me. That's just not my nature. I feel like I have to defend my decision since people can be judgmental sometimes, but anyway, I digress. Which is why I encouraged Eric to talk to them. So at least I would have the peace of mind of knowing that my nephew was doing fine. That's all that matters to me, to be honest. So 2 weeks ago, he finally got in touch with them and asked them how things were going there. And Alyssa told him that things were pretty bad. They were having to rely on a daycare to take care of their son. It was burning a hole into their pockets because the neighborhood that they lived in was pretty expensive and it was not an option for them to drive several hours away from where they lived, back and forth every day, since Caleb also had to go to work. And she could not do anything for herself anymore, so it was really bad. On top of that, they were falling behind on the rent and were at risk of being evicted, which hadn't happened so far just because she was severely injured. The landlord was kind enough to give them an extension for a couple of months, but after that, they definitely had to pay up the money or leave the house, and she didn't know where she was going to get all that cash from. She had asked our parents for help, but they had refused, again, saying that they wanted to save up for the future. I can understand that they want to save for any future medical emergencies or whatever, but it's not like we are never going to return the money back to them. We haven't ever been like that. I don't understand why they are always so skeptical and weird about money when it comes to their own kids. It's not like we are thieves. However, this time, when my parents said no to helping her out, she lost her mind and told them that she was cutting them out of her life. This time, she was going to be the one who was not going to speak to them ever again. And as much as it is like Caleb and Alyssa, I think that they made the right decision. They are toxic, but so are my parents. It's a wonder how Eric and I turned out right, given the fact that we were surrounded by such people. But anyway, my parents are not going to have any access to either of their grandkids for the next couple of years, that's for sure. And they are going to have nobody else to blame but themselves. They're not even going to have any access to their kids, now that you think about it, since I am not speaking to them. Eric is not talking to them anymore and neither is Alyssa, from this point onwards. So they pretty much are on their own. I can't say that they don't deserve it, I definitely don't feel bad for them. Now coming to Alyssa and Caleb. Eric and I discussed things that were going on with them and I told him that I would not have a problem if he wanted to help them. My conscience would not allow me to stand in the way of that. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it. Personally, I'm going to stay out of their business, like they said. But I'm also not going to discourage anybody if they want to help them. And Eric told me that so far, he had not been on speaking terms with her, just because what she had done to me was so wrong. But now, it's very difficult to be mad at her because in spite of everything that had happened, she was in a really difficult position, and as her older brother, he could not just sit by and watch his nephew suffer. Because he knew for a fact that Alyssa's son was having a really difficult time dealing with all of this emotionally. And so, we decided that he was going to send some money to them every month until they were able to get back on their own 2 feet. I am actually glad that he's doing it because I know that nobody had taken a stand for him when he was going through a difficult time. My parents did not do anything for him and I had tried to contribute to him financially, when he was going through a slump in his business, and so had Alyssa. But we also had to look out for ourselves, and we were not in a position, unlike our parents. They are pretty well off, so they could afford to do it. Again, I'm not trying to sound entitled, but they could have helped out, but they did not. And even though Alyssa and I were not exactly in a position to be philanthropists, we still tried to help. So now, I guess it's only fair that Eric returns the favor and helps her out as well, regardless of what she did to me. I'm never going to move on from that, but whatever. My major concern was that my nephew would be suffering, but now that it's out of the way, I can go back to never thinking about them again. I honestly just don't want anything to do with either Alyssa or Caleb. I'm really sorry that something so bad happened to them, but now, I want to move on with my life. I think this was the closure that I needed because even during the divorce, I still hadn't felt like I was done with it, as much as I do now. I'm going to just focus on my work and my own life and try to improve everything about myself, without worrying about other people anymore. I don't have to deal with any other toxic people, since I'm no longer in touch with my parents either. And I'm pretty happy about it. I'm single, and I have a lot to live for. So, I'll be fine. Thank you so much for following my story and for showing me so much support.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to check out our other videos and leave a comment with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an update. See you next time on our channel, where the best Reddit stories come to life.